I mean, I feel like it seems like it's a lot of work, but to get the grades that you want, you need to put in the effort. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new here. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys all about how I studied and how I did well in pathophysiology and how you can do well too. So if this is your first video of mine, hi, I'm currently a second-year nursing student at the University of Ottawa. I'm studying to get my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, and I'm currently in my second year of studies. I've been documenting my journey to RN on this channel, and I would love if you would subscribe, join our little family, and help me reach my goal of 2,000 subscribers. This collar of mine has a mind of its own, so if you see it like flinging up throughout the video, just ignore that. It's just like literally it's not staying down, and I don't know why. Also, I'm obviously not bald. I like braided my hair back and it's in a bun, so that's why. But let's just get into the video. So I've written down on my phone everything that I want to talk about because I just don't want to miss anything. I'm going to be giving you guys tips, my study tips, how I like fully retain the information, what I did post-lecture, pre-lecture, during the lecture, and all that fun stuff. So the first thing that I would definitely recommend, but I know this is not like viable and even possible for everybody, but that is to isolate the class if possible. So if you can just take patho by itself, or if you can take it in a semester with a smaller course load, I would 150% recommend that. I mean, pathophysiology is a very content dense class, and it is arguably one of the hardest classes in nursing school. So if you can take it in a like lighter semester or even just by itself, I would totally recommend that. I actually took patho this past summer prior to when I would have had to take it in the fall, and I'm really happy with myself that I did that. Obviously, there are a few factors to consider when you take a summer class. Like, first of all, you need to see if it's even offered by your school. I know a lot of nursing schools don't even offer summer classes if it's not gonna be with like a full course load. And second of all, I know people work, people travel, and some people just don't want to have summer school if not. I've personally always been somebody who has taken summer classes to get ahead and to have that more manageable semester. I've done this all throughout high school. Like, I actually had 7 free periods. I could have graduated a year early, but instead I decided to just really like disperse my heavy classes and lighten my course load so I could focus on each individual class with the best amount of like effort possible, if that makes sense. I suck at explaining, but yeah, so I took patho in the summer and I took it with another class, which was an elective, but my elective was very light. It was a music class, music in the movies, and it was only 1 month long. Patho, on the other hand, was 3 months long, but I literally put like 90% of my effort in patho and then like 10% for my elective, and I did well in both classes, so it's possible. So if you can isolate the class, I would definitely recommend it. You're gonna thank yourself later. Honestly, like, I thought I would either fail or just do terrible if I took it in the semester with a full course load, so that's why I did that. So my second tip is like, I guess, encompassing the taking notes portion for patho. Basically, we know patho is very dense. Like, there's a lot of information that you need to know. So what I would do is I always look at my PowerPoints before I would go to class, like in person. I know now with everything being online, it's a little different, but I think this tip still applies to online learning. So what I would do is I would look at the PowerPoint before I even listened to the lecture if it was recorded, or before I attended like the Zoom class. It just, one, kind of preps your mind about the material that you're about to see. And patho is so much, it can be really overwhelming, so looking at it before you even start hearing the professor explain and talk and elaborate can be just a way to like calm your nerves and your anxieties for the lecture. So I would look over the PowerPoint, and then I would paste the PowerPoint into a Google Doc, and then as the professors were explaining and as I was listening to the recording, I would take notes either in the presenter notes area of the PowerPoint and then transfer them to my doc, or I would just write them directly onto the doc just to save time. That's kind of what it comes to writing the notes. And also, I was pretty adamant on writing everything that the professor said, or like 95% of what the professor said, and that just helps me when I'm studying because I can read it back as the professor said it to me initially. So it's like every time I read it, I'm reading it as the professor explained to me. So in a way, it's like the professor is explaining it to me over and over again when I read it, and then from those professors' words, I feel like oftentimes it's like more elaborate. And then also I feel like the professor's like words are like easier to understand compared to just reading the information from a textbook. And then oftentimes I would take what the professor said and then put it in my own words as well. That's just like a big tip. I mean, I feel like it seems like it's a lot of work, but to get the grades that you want, you need to put in the effort. That's what I would do for the notes. My third tip, and this is kind of related to note taking, but it's a different form of note taking, is concept maps. I don't know if you guys have heard about what concept maps are. I have a whole video on this channel on how to create concept maps. I will link it up here in the iCard as well as in the description box. But concept maps are just a way to really consolidate all the information that you know and look at it in a less overwhelming way, in like a more visually appealing way. In patho, I personally feel like so many conditions yield the same signs and symptoms, and you're like, how do I know which is which? So what I did is I made a ton of concept maps. I actually pulled these up from the archives. So I have like scarlet fever, oral thrush, sliding hiatal hernia, embolus, varicose veins. Like I actually have it all over here, and I would 100% recommend this to anyone. I mean, I am a tactile, so hands-on learner. I like to draw out the diagrams, write things out in different ways, create charts, things like that, but I'm also very visual. So I like the fact that the concept maps are really like visually appealing way to look at something. It's also a lot less overwhelming, and it's so easy to just take like the two concept maps of the disease that are confusing you, or like two diseases that have the same signs and symptoms, and then just comparing them side by side and really differentiating which is which. I also really liked the concept maps for like review sessions as well, like before the midterm, before the exam, or just like to review all the content that I learned in the lecture. So I would actually just take like my papers, go downstairs to the elliptical, put it on like the little elliptical like dashboard, and then just walk while I was studying. That was a way to like change up the way I would study, but also get some like blood flow circulating. And I guess that's kind of another tip too, find like new ways to study. And for me, concept mapping just really help. And I feel like when you make your concept map, you can see like the key components of the disease and like the pathology, and you're able to really look at it and elaborate more in your own words, but you also have like the most important features packed down, and you can learn that. And I just think concept maps are amazing. I will forever rave about these because they are so great. They're so great. Now my next tip is to look at Patho Guides online. There is a website, I think it's from the University of Calgary. I looked at this briefly in the summer. They don't have everything that I was personally looking for, but they do have a lot of very helpful guides for pathophysiology, and I will actually like put the website up here or whatever. Also, if you just search up like, for example, diabetes concept map, diabetes study guide, or something like that, you'll find a bunch on the internet. But the one thing that I do have to say about this is obviously somebody else's notes are not your notes, and like the information that they've learned is probably going to be a little bit different than the way you've learned it and the way that you're going to be tested on, if that makes sense. Don't just rely on other people's guides, because a really big part of like the learning is creating the guides yourself and creating the concept maps yourself. But to get inspired, or just if you're like short on time, you can search up concept maps and patho study guides online. But like I said, they're not going to be 100% accurate for you, and they're not going to be catered for your learning. It's what somebody else has made, and you're just taking that and getting an idea. But that's just kind of like the shortcut. If you cannot make concept maps, then I would recommend it. Or if you just want to look at the information in a different way, then I would recommend that. Above all, I would recommend making your own concept maps. It's like the most efficient, most effective way. So my next tip is distributive practice, and I will stress this until the day I die. Distributive practice is amazing. I think a lot of people think now, especially with COVID, that, oh, a lot of our exams are open book or everything is online, so we don't really need to study like we did when we were going in person. But that is 1000% not a good mentality to have whatsoever. And I told myself back in the winter of first year, so second semester of first year, I told myself that I was going to study for my online exams just as I would if the exam was in person, and that is just completely done by distributive practice. That's what I do. I study a little bit after each lecture. At the end of the week, I review everything new that I learned for all my classes. When it comes to exams, I also review over an extensive period of days. So for Patho, I actually reviewed for 11 days for the midterm and like 12 days for the exam, and that was great because I just had 11 days of pure review. It was great. And distributive practice is awesome. Also, studies show that distributive practice does yield better results and better like retaining of the information. So just do that. And basically distributive practice is just studying a little bit every single day, so it doesn't pile up at the end and you don't get super overwhelmed. But then also, if you study diabetes on Monday and then you do cardiovascular diseases on Tuesday, you do acid base and fluid electrolyte imbalances on Wednesday, and then Thursday you come back and you continue with diabetes, that's already going to be your second pass through. And then when it comes to reviewing for the exam, that's going to be your third or your fourth pass through. So distributive practice is amazing. I think I probably suck at explaining. It's a little late right now, but I would totally recommend it to anyone. So my next tip is to discuss what you're learning with your peers, with your family, with your friends. So if I learn something that I find interesting, I'll go and talk to like my friends and mostly my family about like the disease that I learned. Or sometimes if I just need to explain a process and like the pathology behind something, I'll go and explain it to somebody. Even if they have no idea what's going on, it helps you understand. And it helps you retain the information more when you like say it out loud and just discuss it with people. And sometimes they actually have genuine questions about like the disease and they want to know more, and then that's where you can kind of go beyond your learning and also just solidify what you already knew. My next tip is to do practice quizzes online. I mean, they have so many different practice quizzes online on Google. Like, you can literally search pathophysiology quizzes and you're gonna find some, or just whatever the case may be. There's so much out there, so definitely do use your resources. And practice quizzes is something that I recommend 1000,000,000%, and I do this for almost all my classes, and I feel like it helps me like all the time. A website that I really like to use is Quizzes. A friend of mine found this in first year and I've been using it ever since. And my last tip is kind of going based off the previous one, which is like using your resources, but watch YouTube videos. I love using Registered Nurse RN. I think a lot of you guys, if you're nursing students, you know who she is, but she has very, very helpful videos. And then with the videos, she has quizzes that correspond. So like if you're looking at like the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, she has like a whole video on that, and then she has a quiz related to that video and to that concept. And that was actually a concept that I struggled a lot in A&P. So when I learned it through Sarah, Registered Nurse RN, or like just through YouTube videos, it really solidified it because I had the quiz accommodating the video. That information has been so like solid that I know it to this day. I know how the whole mechanisms of that works, and along with a lot of other diseases and things that I've learned in classes because I've watched YouTube videos and I've heard somebody explain it in a different way. I just definitely recommend watching YouTube videos. There's so much out there, and if you're somebody who like maybe you just can't really sit through like a 20-minute YouTube video after you've just sat through like a 3-hour lecture, that's okay. Just speed up the video. I speed up all my lectures. Every YouTube video that I watch for school, I speed it up to like 2 times the speed, and it makes it so much more bearable, and it takes up a fraction of the time. And yeah, like, why not? Those are all my tips for how to do well in pathophysiology. You may have noted that there's a few things that I left out in this video that I recommended in my other studying like routines. It's different for everyone. Usually I recommend using flashcards or some sort of an online flashcard website, but for this I don't really recommend flashcards. I mean, I know it can work for some people, but for me personally, I just didn't do the flashcards route, and I'm happy that I didn't because it's just so much information. However, I do see how flashcards could work for somebody because Patho is very similar to A&P, and for A&P I used Quizlets and flashcards and it helped me out a lot. But for Patho, I really stuck to concept map and understanding the information rather than just trying to memorize it all right off the bat and hoping that what I memorized would appear on the exam. But yeah, those are all my tips. I would totally recommend that you guys actually take time out of your day to really understand the concepts and the material that you're being taught, because at the end of the day in nursing school, a lot of the information that you've learned in prior courses will be brought up. It's gonna come back, so if you just know it from the get-go, it's gonna facilitate your life so much. I mean, for example, in pathophysiology, we learned about Glasgow Coma Scale and all about that, and then in my health assessment class this semester, I was learning about how to perform the mental status assessment, and I was taught about the Glasgow Coma Scale. I was taught it, but I already knew it from Patho, so it was more so just a review. It wasn't my first exposure. But had I just thought that like, oh, Patho was online, I don't need to study, I wouldn't have known it then, and I wouldn't have known it now. So really actually appreciate the information that you're learning. I mean, you're paying, and I know for some people it's annoying, like because we're online, that we have to pay full tuition, but if you're paying, you may as well learn it and actually understand it and try your best, because we're only in nursing school once, you know? So but yeah, I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and I hope I was able to give you guys some tips. I put in a lot of time and effort for Patho, and I do think that my grade reflected the hard work and the effort that I put into it, but you don't need a lot of time on Patho. You just need to be very efficient with your learning, and I hope that these tips are going to help you be efficient and thrive in pathophysiology. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, the subscribe button, and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. That's all from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.